Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Taco Tuesday edition of The Rundown. I am your host, Craig DeLuz, but as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
That's right. I do my best to join you from the East Coast as the co-host for today's program. My name is Mike Piworski.
Excellent, excellent. I hope you guys enjoyed I guess could you call it the encore performance of episode 131?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, we, for folks that are missed the earlier episode, what we did yesterday was we sat down at the tables here in the recording studios and did our normal at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, and it just didn't go anywhere. It records so we could post it up later on the other platforms, but it didn't go to Facebook. Facebook wasn't up. You guys are aware of that. In fact, it's one of our topics today. But we hope you enjoyed it. We posted it up about an hour ago, Craig. We posted it up just so everybody can see it.
Yes, sir. It was just an hour ago. So if you missed us yesterday, you get the double dose today.
There you go. You get the double rundown. There we go.
Two tacos for one.
Oh, that's right. It's 2 for 1 Tuesday.
2 for 1 Taco Tuesday. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. I always get excited about Taco Tuesday. It's kind of funny because the number of restaurants now that actually offer deals on on Tuesdays for tacos. It's weird. You can, whether it's fish tacos or whatever it is, there's tons of opportunities to enjoy the little meat sandwich.
Listen, little corn tortilla, some meat with seasoning, cilantro, onion. That's it. And you put your sauce on it, some hot sauce.
I gotta say, I'm a little bit more of a flour tortilla guy.
Are you? I see. I like the corn. Yeah.
I think,
but I can go flour too. We can still hang together. It's okay. It's not that big of a
Okay,
it's not that big of a deal breaker. Yeah.
It's not a deal breaker. Good.
Not a deal
I am
breaker.
glad. I would hate to think that a little flour would come between us.
That's it. Or corn.
Little corn would come between us. All right, folks. Wait, let's jump right into today's news because, our first story actually kind of feeds into, what happened yesterday. Facebook, apparently, they had some issues yesterday. They were put in Facebook jail or put themselves in Facebook jail, whatever happened. But anyway, so they were having some technical problems. Evidently, they made some changes to their databases or something like that pretty much took down their entire system worldwide. And evidently, it was back up about 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Eastern yesterday. I know that until like 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. It was till last night. It really wasn't working. But anyway, so a lot of people weren't able to do a lot of things. Feeds weren't able to be updated. All of the interactions between the various different abilities to distribute live videos, all of that was affected. And Mike, I can't help but wonder, and this kind of goes with the second part of what I believe their epic problem was yesterday, was on Sunday night on 60 Minutes, there was a whistleblower who was on. And she basically noted that, there's a lot of stuff that Facebook knows is bad for the people who partake it, for their customers. And yet they lied about it. They've studied it. They've lied about it. Lied before Congress, in fact. And one has to wonder, is that why they wound up putting themselves in Facebook jail?
Craig, like you, I've become something of the conspiracy connoisseur. I do not think that story sounds so ridiculous that it couldn't be true. I did not watch the 60 Minutes the other day. I was traveling, and but I don't see where it would be true. I'd like to see, again, like anything else that you and I talk about on here. Show me the evidence. Let me make an informed decision. But it does not sound out of the realm of possibilities. That's for sure.
Well, it's kind of funny because if you listen to her talk, first of all, she was really I think she considers herself to be part of she says she wants to fight against misinformation, but she really comes across as a part of the folks who really liked pushing the woke algorithm that pretty much locked conservatives out of being involved in Facebook. The ones that tended to get conservatives or pro-liberty people suspended, put in Facebook jail, or have their accounts canceled altogether. And her belief was that after the end of the election, they pretty much turned those algorithms off, which, by the way, you and I know they didn't, but that they turned the algorithms off. And that's the reason why she got angry and upset. And she was like, we cannot continue to allow this to happen. And that's what made her pull all of this stuff. But there were a number of things that she fed into. Like, for example, the algorithm pretty much pushed what more people were interacting with, that was more likely to show up in your feed. And she knows that, and they know that people who tend to interact more with things with that make them angry or with which they disagree. So they were saying that was feeding a lot of the anger and a lot of the hate that was on social media. She also noted that when it came to Instagram, they had studies that showed that it created a negative body image for, I think this is something like 13 to 17% of young women, and that they said, quote unquote, it increased the likelihood of them thinking about suicide or engaging in eating disorders. And that Facebook knew this, and even when questioned before Congress, they decided, they lied. They pretty much lied, even though they had internal studies showing the exact opposite. And I kind of have mixed feelings about this. And you and I talked about this briefly before the show, so I'll let you share your perspective.
Listen, at this point, Greg, Facebook, I don't even think Zuckerberg and his people have much control over it. First of all, what they say this was the back end infrastructure juxtaposing the flux capacitor, and it overloaded. And they threw a bunch of technical terms out there, and everybody just went, well, that's clearly not what happened. But let's move on from there. I think they walk in a room. Remember the movie War Games, Craig, where they had the Whopper, the big old computer that would sit in there, and it was basically the first version of an AI computer, or a computer that started to experience AI and was controlling the war effort. I think that's what Facebook is. I think it's so huge and it's so big right now that they got people throwing around going, or sitting around throwing algorithms at it, like conservatives bad, and then Facebook just goes crazy pulling everything conservative out, and they've got to spend days and weeks trying to kind of correct it so it doesn't look so completely obvious that they're so biased. But I don't know that anybody's controlling Facebook anymore, rather than people talking about it around it. Because let's face it, if you talk about Facebook around a piece of electronics, you're going to get the ads for Facebook on those electronics. So I think the same thing happens.
Would you like to play a game?
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
I know for some of you out there, you don't get that.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, though, is that there have been enough whistleblowers, and it was kind of interesting that when Project Veritas did a couple of different things with whistleblowers from the various different social medias, including Facebook, about how they were controlling the ability, the reach, and the speech of center-right individuals and organizations. Nobody in the mainstream media cared. They didn't care one bit that there was evidence in the algorithms that they were trying to silence and shut down people who talked about anything like the Second Amendment, people who talked about anything pro-life, people who talked about anything conservative or make America great again or liberty or patriot. Those were literally dirty words in the Facebook algorithm. And once again, their whole goal was to shut down. They were saying they wanted to shut down violent extremists, but what they were really doing was shutting down conservatives. Well, now we're finding, and they were doing it largely because, well, that's what they figured. That's how they figured they could make some money, is by pleasing the left. But now they're finding that now the left is even finding out that they're just pretty much doing whatever they can to make money. And I don't know that I can fault them for that. My thing about it is this: that it should be the but it should be the Wild Wild West, because in the end, when you start playing with trying to control the speech of one side, you control the speech. You inevitably, that algorithm, you don't know what the unintended consequences are, and the unintended or the intended consequences. The point is that you wind up eventually going too far. And that is oftentimes what they did. But ultimately, you got people blaming Instagram because they don't monitor what their kids are doing on the internet. I don't know what you
Yeah.
do with that because they don't talk with their children enough about things like body image and stuff like that and healthy eating and all. I mean, my thing is try this rather than blame Instagram or blame Facebook. Be a parent rather than blame Facebook for your anger over those people over there, their politics. Why not be an adult and actually engage in some intellectual discussion and hold people accountable when they don't? I've deleted, I can honestly say, hundreds of people because they did not want to engage. I'm all for debate. I have people on my Facebook feed who are of all different perspectives. But I'm not going to engage in name calling. If you want to get into name calling, fine. You know what? Delete. I don't need you I don't need you to communicate with on Facebook. But instead of people being adults, they want to blame the pooter.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. Listen, I bet you those 13 to 17% of children that have body issues also don't take part in any physical activity at school or after school programs as well, which goes right back to what you said. Be the parent, recognize the problem, and let's work together, right? Yeah, let's do our jobs as parents and keep the kids off of the social media parent that it has become.
Exactly. Now, speaking of taking responsibility for your decisions, let's just say that banks, they're having to take some responsibility for their decisions to be anti-gun. Now, you know that a number of different banks, including Bank of America, Citibank, and a number of other banks, have decided that they are going to control, oftentimes reject, or question any purchase made through any business done through a firearms retailer. So if you're going to buy a firearm, if you're going to sell a firearm, if you want to purchase ammunition, they are in some cases rejecting those purchases, and in some cases actually just cutting off and not doing business with any firearms or ammunition retailers at all. Well, Texas passed a law that basically said we will not do business with financial institutions that do that. And they have seen the Texas municipal bond for them. They have seen that business come to a grinding halt. And Texas is one of the biggest states in the country. And so that's a significant amount of business that they are no longer getting. And I am just quite tickled to see that news.
Yeah, we touched on this law when it first passed, Craig. This goes back to the Obama days of Operation Choke Point, where there were banks out there that were secretly at first targeting the firearms industry as well as alcohol and tobacco industry, and because they were going after morals, basically. They were becoming the morality police. Firearms being the primary that it was happening. And it was not only happening to the individual businesses, it was happening to individuals that were making purchases at businesses that were clearly identified as firearms establishments. Legally, let's say that again, legally purchased. I'm not talking about somebody going out there and using a credit card to buy an illegal gun on the street. That would be ridiculous. But if you don't tell people that ahead of time, they think that that's how it's tied in. This was to stop legal purchases of firearms. Now we see it again. We see it again happening. So Texas passed a law, said, hey, you banks, you want to do business in our state with the governments of our state, whether that be city, county, or the state government. If you want to do business with any of the cities, counties, and state government here in Texas, you cannot and you shall not be anti-gun. You shall not have any policies against working with firearms owners, with firearms establishments, with firearms dealers, with firearms manufacturers. You cannot, and it has greatly affected those three of the companies, Craig. Guess where? Guess where they're headquartered? Guess where they're located? Right there in old Manhattan, right there in the old heart of De Blasio and in the heart of anti-gun rhetoric. You've got the Bank of America, you've got Citibank, and JP Morgan. You've got them going on. I'm sorry, it's the Chase Bank. This comes under the JP Morgan as well. So.
I'm
it's
hoping
nice
that other states. I'm sorry about that. I'm hoping other states follow them. I'm hoping that other states say, you know what, if you're going to restrict doing business, you're not going to do business with legal businesses that facilitate the exercising of a constitutional right, then you're not worthy of our business.
Yeah. I hope it happens in many places. I've personally taken a great joy and when I shut down my Bank of America account, I had it as a business account, had it as a personal account, and had a decent amount of change in there, and just made sure I engaged them with the this is the reasons I'm shutting down. And they called, "Are you sure you want to shut your account down?" I said, "Yep." And this is the reasons. They're like, "Oh, well, I don't even know what to say to that. It's not part of our, try and save your account policy speeches here that we have."
Well, yeah, file it under other and put in that reason.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly right. So screw them. Like I said yesterday, you want to hurt them? Hurt them with your wallet.
Hurt them with your wallet. And the great part about that is I'm usually not the biggest like, okay, we're going to boycott them unless, because it's hard. I mean, if I boycotted every single business or every single industry that violated something that I did or did something that I disagreed with, dude, I wouldn't even be able to sit here in front of you because probably half the equipment that I'm using is created by woke companies. But I can decide, I can curb my buying habits. I can decrease, I can change to a certain degree. And by the way, if I can find a reasonable alternatives, I can cut you out altogether. Right. So, I do what I can when I can, but I always tell people, you do what works for you. But if you want to send a message, yes, sending a message with your dollars is a vitally important, and make sure once again, they know why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Drop them a line. Yeah, be polite, let them know. Be professional, but drop them a line. Yeah, here you go. For your records, that's why when you get the call from CNN, you can cite it, correctly. I dropped you because of your anti-gun policies.
Exactamundo.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move on from anti-gun for a minute. Well, I guess it's a kind of a different kind of gun we're gonna be talking about. But there is a there is a Congress member. There's a representative from the state of Pennsylvania who is proposing the idea of mandatory vasectomies for inseminators. That's right. If you are over the age of 40, or if you have fathered, I can't say fathered, if you have inseminated, and that more than 3 people that has resulted in children, then they would mandate that you get a vasectomy. Now, I'm going to say it again. This is a Democrat. This is a Democrat who is proposing this. Now, Mike, I could be wrong, but Democrats are always calling Republicans fascists. But I always thought the fascists were the ones who wanted to use the power of government to control people. Is this not one of the most absurd and, by the way, fascist ideas that you have ever heard?
Listen, this is ridiculous. This is Christopher M. Rabb, R-A-B-B, Christopher M. Rabb, and he's from he's a House representative in the state of Pennsylvania. So he's in the state house there.
Okay, he's in the state house. Okay, my bad. I misread.
Pennsylvania. Yeah, no worries. And he's decided, like you said, Craig, that we're going to start conducting population control. Is what we're going to do. We're going to start limiting the number of people. Evidently, Craig, I guess in Pennsylvania, it's so overwhelmed with people that they must now go into the Thanos solution and start eliminating births, because they're also talked about, Craig, not only giving the vasectomy, but if you're found to have fathered that 4th child before you're 40 years old, or you haven't had your artificial or your vasectomy, that they're going to do abortions, right? They're going to try everything, right? Wait. So we can kill children from one end but not the other? Oh, wait a second. Doesn't that sound like a double standard already again? And I'm not saying that the men carry the eggs or anything like that, but try and fertilize an egg without the sperm and see what happens. So it's they have no problem, again, Craig, coming at my body, my choice, right? Mm-hmm. It's okay when it's their body, their choice, but not when it's my body, my choice.
Well, let's be clear. And the whole family planning movement came out of the eugenics movement. And the eugenics movement was specifically about controlling the populations of undesirable people. It is this belief that we can create a utopia by making sure that we don't have too many of the wrong people. And just so people know, the eugenics movement then and the family planning movement now were progressives. That's what they like to call themselves. They were progressives who believed in guiding our country or guiding the world, in this particular case, the United States, when it comes to controlling economically, ethnically, and culturally, as well as, and by the way, doing it by controlling the populations of quote unquote undesirable people. And that's the left. And they've changed their motivations. At least they claim they changed their excuses why they do this. But their policies have not changed since the beginning of the 20th century, since the early 1900s. They still are trying to utilize, like I said, quote unquote family planning to, institute a genocide of the undesirables. And that includes, in no small order, people of color.
Yeah, let's not dance around the bush there, Craig. By undesirables, you mean minorities, and that's what the liberal
or poor white people too.
Yeah, well, just so you know, folks, the liberals have no place for poor white folks. They have no place for any poor folks other than they want your vote, and they'll lie to you about it, and they'll keep you there with, you know what, if they really wanted, Craig, if they really wanted the poor people not to be poor anymore, they could give them enough money where they weren't poor, right? But instead they give them just enough to get some minimum wage, to get some welfare, and to get some gratefulness, so they'll vote for them.
Right.
Johnson said it after when creating that policy, right? He said giving out welfare will buy us the minority vote, and he didn't say minority.
He did not say minority. Dropped an M-bomb right up in there.
Yep. That's the same thing we see going on now with Hispanic vote. They're buying you. Listen, they're buying you, and they're buying you cheaply. Okay, all right. You get out of the cycle, folks. Get out of the cycle.
Well, I will tell you this
too.
One of the things that polls are showing is that to a large degree, at least right now, the first generation, they're not falling for it. Huge numbers of Latino voters actually voted Republican in this last election.
Yes, the swing came back around for Latinos, and we even saw a huge uptick in the number of African American votes because. Right. Listen, President Trump went in and said, they've been lying to you for 50 years. I'm at least going to tell you the truth. This is going to be a priority. And we saw the greatest increase in education numbers, in job employment, in future prospects from the African-American community that we'd ever seen since it's been tracked.
Right.
So
once again,
this
folks,
this vasectomy thing is just more control, more ways to get rid of minorities and the poor. Because if we get rid of the minorities and the poor, we don't have to write them as many checks. Right. Why do you think abortion clinics are located in poor, downtrodden neighborhoods and not in the big communities? All right, because it becomes an alternative for them to raising a child. They get to save money. Listen, I don't think anybody's. I mean, I guess there's some out there. Nobody's trying to get pregnant to go have an abortion, but it becomes an alternative to them when they realize, the welfare check only gives them 2 nickels to rub together, and they don't want to raise a child like that.
If you want to know more about it, just Google the Negro Project, and you'll see exactly what it is that we're talking about. And once again, that I didn't create that. The Democratic Party, the eugenics movement, the family planning movement actually created that. So check it out. But this is basically more of that. They want to control populations.
Yep.
I don't know what else to tell you, but that's their whole goal. And anyway, I would definitely reconsider whether or not this guy should be sitting in office. Just saying.
Yeah, this guy should be sitting in the nut house, being let him read his copy of Mein Kampf there.
Maybe there's at least one vasectomy that needs to be done. This guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know that he should propagate.
Yeah, it would be the vasectomy in the 450th month or something like that, which is fine.
Vasectomy and a lobotomy.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, moving right along. The Supreme Court of the United States has basically refused to take or declined to take a case that would have allowed them to at least hear the argument for felons, in particular nonviolent felons, not losing their Second Amendment rights forever. As you know, if you are convicted of a felony, you lose your right to keep and bear arms forever. Unless you can actually get that conviction expunged. And even then, in some states, they still won't give you your Second Amendment rights back. We know that you lose a number of rights when you're convicted of a felony, but some rights you do get back. Like you do get back in many states the right to vote. But when it comes to the Second Amendment, you pretty much lose it forever. Thoughts on this one, Mike?
This case comes out of Wisconsin. It's Mr. Levon Roundtree, and years back he was convicted of a felony for a failure to pay child support. And in Wisconsin, if you fail to pay child support for 4 months, it becomes a felony. Well, it was a non-violent offense, and he was convicted of felony. And the felon, statute there, or so the law and the statute says a felon is a felon. It does not differentiate when it comes to the loss of firearms rights between murderers and white collar crimes or failure to pay child support crimes. So I think there's a point to be addressed. We know where Justice Amy Coney Barrett stands on this because it was brought up in her papers during her confirmation or her nomination and confirmation process with the Supreme Court. She does not see a reason that a nonviolent offender would have to have their firearms rights refused. Craig, I think the reason the Supreme Court turned this one away was not that they don't have the ear for this. It's just that the Wisconsin law was just marginal enough to where there really was an argument to be made. It says, felons will have their rights, taken away, for your Second Amendment rights taken away. They have not defined, and anywhere in state statute, state law, state code, whatever they call it there, what a violent felon is and what a non-violent felon is. I think if they got that aspect put into their law, then the Supreme Court would take a look at this.
Well, I would agree with you. The big challenge here is also, though, what is within the Supreme Court's jurisdiction. And if there is, part of the problem was that felonies literally used to just be violent crimes, right?
Right.
It was like if it was violent, it was considered a felony. Things like child support, which didn't exist back then, but a lot of the things now that we have as felonies are things that during that time would have been considered misdemeanors. So would not have been necessarily prohibiting. I think that one of the things they probably believe is that this is something that should be handled legislatively. And we do have a number of people on the court, a number of conservatives on the court who don't want to overstep their bounds in terms of what their role is. And so even though they probably agree that, that nonviolent felons should have the ability to get their rights back, whether or not that is something that should be mandated by the Supreme Court is another question. And I think that's where we have a number of the right-leaning judges or the correct-leaning judges is that they're like, yeah, we agree that they, nonviolent felons should be able to get their rights back after they've served their time, just like they get back their right to vote. But is the Supreme Court really the place where that should be happening, where that decision should be made? I almost would have rather had them hear the case and then make that distinction in their dissent or in their rulings and their opinions than to not take the case at all.
I agree. I just think that there was a little bit there in that statute that didn't do it. This court now with the conservative majority they're strict constitutionalists, and they don't, where they would have loved to have said, Craig, I'm sure, no, nonviolent felonies should not be included in that. But as a strict constitutionalist, they look at what have been basically chartered and created to do, and they said, you know what? We don't have the authority to step in on this. Now perhaps if they had come for injunctive relief rather than a direct court ruling, right, to come after a verdict, that may have worked better that way. I know that and obviously I sit here in the state of Florida. That in the state of Florida, it's now pretty simple to get your constitutional rights restored if you're a felon, all but your Second Amendment right. If once you complete your sentence here and you're clear of any supervision and you've paid all your fines, in Florida, all you have to do is literally click a couple of tabs on the state website, and you get all your rights restored. You get to vote, you get to take part in other civil actions, you get to run for office, you get to do all of that, except the Second Amendment right. For that one, you still have to go before the old parole board, and the the pardon council and get them to relieve that. That's a huge deal. I think that's happened something like twice in the past couple of years. Last time I looked it up.
Right. Well, exactly. And once again, it's one of those things where you have to actually get it removed from your record. And even then, like we've seen instances where individuals have had felonies removed from their record.
Yep.
And in some states, they still like California. We have a case. The Firearms Policy Coalition had a case where they had something that was a felony. It was a traffic incident or something like that occurred in another state. Turns out not only was the person, they didn't just get it expunged, but they were wrongly convicted, had it removed from their record, and California still refused to reinstate their gun rights. So you have some states that will still refuse, even if you go through getting it expunged. So the best thing to do is try not getting convicted of a felony.
No, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of them out there that do say, okay, yes, you've been pardoned, but that doesn't mean you weren't convicted.
Right.
You no longer have to face any penalties. You've been pardoned, but you were still convicted. And if you were convicted of a felony, that makes you a felon. Well,
right.
That's not what a pardon means. That's not what an expungement means. It means just to be treated as if it never happened. But again, like we're seeing what's going on in Missouri right now with the McCloskeys, the attorney there for the for the ethical police of attorneys, is saying, well, they may have been pardoned, but they were still convicted of it, so they should lose their law licenses.
Right. And the worst thing
it's
about
a liberal knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah. Well, and the worst thing about all of this is that in many cases they know what they're doing is unconstitutional.
Yep.
They're leaning on the fact that that most people, the average person, doesn't have the financial wherewithal to take them to court to fight to get their rights back or to protect their rights. And
exactly.
Most of us don't, and that's why it's important that you support organizations like the Firearms Policy Coalition, like Gun Owners of California, like the Second Amendment Foundation, that actually are engaged in these legal fights. Because in many cases they can't take on every case because they can't afford to take on every case.
Nope.
But they take on the cases that are going to have ramifications beyond just the individual, but that speak to broader issues and the defense of rights. So it's important to support those organizations because they largely just become the financial arm to help defend our rights.
Yep. It's exactly right. I don't know how to agree with you more on it. So
yeah.
I'll just.
By the way, as our tax dollars are used to take those rights.
Yeah. How about that, folks? Right? Yeah. Remember, elections have consequences.
Okay, so before we get into our parting shot, I just wanted to make sure to let you guys know. So our parting shot today, we all know maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but our parting shot is all about.
Guess what, bitch? Coronavirus.
Yes, it's all about the coronavirus. It's about that Rona. It's about that.
You got the Rona.
Now, Mike, have you ever heard of the group Rage Against the Machine?
I have heard of the group Rage Against the Machine, an alt rock heavy metal band that their whole persona was, we will fight the power. We are Rage Against the Machine, man. We are against the man.
Well, interesting tweet by Errol Weber that was sent out that I saw that you saw that kind of speaks to the hypocrisy of many in the entertainment industry. So you hear Rage Against the Machine is mandating vaccines for their concerts. Can you say irony? So Rage Against the Machine has become part of the machine.
That's right. They are the machine now. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, isn't that crazy? You know what? They're so duped. They're so fooled that they're probably sitting there going, hey, man, it's for health reasons, man. We're going to make sure everybody's safe enough to go out and listen to our music, man. And it's just the irony of it. Like you said, Craig, we're the Rage Against the Machine, the fight against the man. We support our mandatory vaccinations at our concerts.
The arguments that I get into sometimes with some people, it's like, you do realize that the people arguing for you to be able to make your own health decisions are not the fascists, right?
Right. Yeah.
By definition, at least on that argument, we're not the fascists.
Correct.
I'm not saying we're the fascists on everything else, but I don't know how you argue that the people who are saying, yeah, no, we don't want the government or the entertainment industry or mainstream media to mandate that you inject a drug into your body. I still am trying to figure out how exactly that makes us fascists.
Because they say so, right? And we know everything they say
exactly.
is right. And if we disagree, we're racist
basically
also.
because they say so.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, hey, before we close out today's show, how about a shout out to our sponsors?
Hello to our good friends at Gorilla Machining and Grid Defense. Gorilla Machining and Grid Defense. But Craig, they're not the only sponsors, are they?
No, they're not. We want to make sure that they say thank you to the California Republican Assembly. Folks, the California Republican Assembly, yes, there are Republicans in California. It is the California chapter of the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. It is the largest chapter in the organization. And by the way, it's the largest grassroots conservative organization in the state of California. And it is making a difference. And it is coming to a city or county near you. Just follow the link in the description to this video. Become a member if you're in the state of California. Please become a member. Remember, if you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Don't be a part of the problem.
Don't do it.
Anyway, folks, hey, we very much, by the way, appreciate you guys liking and sharing this program, telling your friends about us. I know you could be watching us on 2A News. You could be watching us on Arms Room Radio or on the California Republican Assembly. But we also need you to like our page. Go to 2A News Rundown on Facebook, or you can find us at rundown.us on which will take you directly to our YouTube channel. Please like, share, and subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe. Do it.
Do it now. See you on what do we call Wednesday again?
Hump Day.
See you guys later.